Good morning, everyone. Today we'll take deontology. That is by Immanuel Kant. Or we say it also popularly, Kantian philosophy. In the last class, we had discussion on Aristotle. We had also given you application part, and you should learn from that. Deonto means means. Logi, you know that. Logi means science. So science of means. So this we say as science of means. Kant will the basis to decide right from wrong is categorical imperative. Now, what is categorical imperative? Rational basis for action. Then what is rational basis for action? He talks two principles. One, act in such a fashion that your action becomes universal. And second, your action should be end in itself rather than working as means to achieve some ends. So he talks about two such principles. They are the principles of categorical imperative, the term he uses. So, what is categorical imperatives? According to him, it is the basis for rational action. What is basis for rational action? So, there are two philosophy, two principles. Human actions should be guided by these two principles. And then we can say that human action is rational. So, let's take one by one what this action means. Act in such a fashion that your action becomes universal. It is very clear, it is not as you have physical forces, physical laws, law in physics, and we consider them as universal. So, similarly, let's say that first principle is like law in physics. So, you can imagine that the level of absoluteness he wants, or the level of, let's say that standard he wants. Somehow he is trying to get the nearness of physical sciences. So if there is a gravity as a force, and you'll find that its value differs, it can be well calculated, but they are universal. Or Newton law is universal. So somewhere he is also trying to be Newton by saying that act in such a fashion that your action becomes universal, means while acting you should think that whether in this same situation all other people will also act in the same fashion. And then we can say yes, it is rational action. And that should be on the basis of rational thinking. That's why he is also a rationalist thinker. And second is that you don't have to bring a means, let's say that, means and ends relationships. Can we have human actions where we don't have means and ends relationships? Have you ever acted without means and ends relationships? Means you have acted only, let's say, for the sake of acting. So you can identify in your life that when it was the instance that you acted without any motive. Basically, this is what he wants to say. So let's take one by one. Let's act in such a fashion. First principle. It means human actions should conform to universal standards. Universal standards. Or universal standards, or they should be in given situation. They should be in given situation universal in nature. Universal in nature. For instance, if a person is very intelligent, and he attended all the classes at his schooling level, but due to family problems, he could not prepare for final examination. He could not prepare for final examination. If he does not pass the examination, he will not get a job. But he has financial problems, extreme financial problems. He will not pass the exam, but he has extreme financial problems. Then, should he copy in examination? Should he copy in examination? In examination. Right. Very simple example. Already you know it's not a very difficult thing. But should he copy? Should he be allowed? Why he should not be allowed? Yes, norms. Why a person should not be allowed to copy in, let's say that, in some extreme situation? He is intelligent. He could anyway he could have qualified because he is very intelligent student. Somehow during final examination, suppose he is not able to prepare and he has extreme financial problems, conditions. If he could not clear the examination, he will not get also a job, so that will also affect financial aspects. So the question is, he is intelligent person, so he could have qualified anyhow. Shouldn't he be allowed to read? Why it should not? It sets bad precedent. Right. Can we say that all people in this situation will act in the same situation? Do you think that all students facing the same situation will try to go for copying? Right. If it is discretions given, means if discretion given to people, should they will go for? They will not go for. Some will not go for, few may go for, this is how it is. So, it is not going to be universal, means in that given situation, all other people will also not act in the same fashion. Right. This is how. And that's why it will not be considered as universal action. But you should logic, if you are asked, let's say, you are not logicking, let's say, that this situation, it is not about, let's say, setting precedent, it is not about whatever you are talking, it is more about merit, how you will determine merit. How you will justify the percentage people have got. What is the veracity, what is the basis of other people qualifying and getting percentage if a person is allowed to copy? Right. Suppose A gets 90%, B gets 89%, C gets 88%. So, and one person has copied and he gets, let's say, also 88%. How can you make a difference between one person who got 88% and a person who copy, he also gets 88%? Right. It will not be justified. It will result into serious problems in society. Right. That what is merit will not be known. What is merit will be difficult to determine. What is, and when merit is not determined, it is difficult to ensure justice. Justice. Because if a person has done hard work and he is securing 88%, and a person is presuming that he is intelligent, but you are allowing him to copy in that given situation, and he also gets 88%. So, what is the difference between both? So, the person who has done hard work, his, let's say that, he will not get justice. So, he will also talk about justice, let's say that, society. So, he is not merely talking about two principles and why you should follow ethics, etc. Basically, it is about that society will lose one thing called what is truth. Second is called what is justice. And that's why, let's say, one should act as per in a given situation universal way. Right. So let's write few lines more on this example. Right. If the person is allowed to copy, it will affect. If the person is allowed to copy, it will affect truthfulness and justice in society. Truthfulness and justice in society. And society may face conflict and tension in state of harmony. Conflict and tension in state of harmony. Right. So he is not merely talking about universal action. He is not merely talking about universal action. Rather, his main motive is to promote first selflessness, second rationality, next truthfulness, next non-harmfulness, and next justice in society. Justice in society. Further you can write, he is also a natural thinker, and he is also a natural thinker and has explained human nature, from a positive perspective. He has also explained human nature from a positive perspective, that it is human tendency to do good and avoid evil. To do good and avoid evil. And therefore, he sets high standards. He sets high standards for ethical human conduct. As universalism is a philosophy followed by physical sciences. Universalism is a philosophy followed by physical sciences. Relevance of this principle. You can write a subheading, then you can write relevance of this principle. Right. There are philosophies and philosophers. Who have emphasized on, or which have emphasized on universality in human action. Such as first, Mahabharata, when it Mahabharata, when it states, do not do unto others as you won't be done by. When it states, do not do unto others as you won't be done by. Second, Gita, which talks about selflessness. Right. Do not do unto others as you won't be done by. Right. Second, we are talking selflessness. Selflessness by Gita. Mahatma Gandhi also emphasizes. Next, Mahatma Gandhi also emphasizes on right action. Right action and truthfulness. Truthfulness. So, are you able to understand this? We started with one thing that categorical imperative. Categorical imperative is nothing but basis to discern, distinguish right from wrong. And this categorical imperative is a system of, let's say, moral philosophy, which becomes basis for discerning right from wrong, distinguishing right from wrong. And that categorical imperative he explains in terms of two principles. So categorical imperatives are nothing but two principles given by him. One as universal action, the second as means and ends relationships. This categorical imperative comes from his concept of explanation of human conscience. Human conscience has a moral command, this is how he will talk about, which we'll explain later. So, human conscience, it is a conscience-based philosophy, which he talks about why you should act in universal way. It is a moral command. You get a moral command by your own conscience that you should act in a right way. Or you can say that it is a human nature to act in a right way and avoid wrong way. Right. For instance, certainly on road you will walk with be it left or right, that's not the point. But you will try to walk in such a fashion that you do not get harm. And you will not also try to harm others. Although some people may harm others, that's different thing. So, human tendency, right? Early morning you get up and if some people start talking some let's say that things which are creating trouble, आप बोलते हो सुबह सुबह क्यों बात कर रहे हो ऐसा? Isn't it? So early morning you don't want to take panga at sectors, isn't it? You want to get it smooth. No. So similarly in life you want to avoid all such tensions. Right. All those negative stimuli, so you try to avoid, you try to follow all those positive stimuli. So we don't have to prove this point that human nature is about, right, trying or let's say that pursuing towards positive things, avoiding the negative things. And that is how, let's say, now here he introduces one thing called categorical imperative, that is called a rational thinking by human. Means how you should decide on road that what is right side, what is wrong side, how I should walk. So there should be a rational basis, rational thinking. Similarly, all other human actions should also be based on rational thinking. And that rational thinking should decide that in a given situation whether your action is universal or not. So he is not giving a set of principles that these are a set of principles which are universal. Rather, let's say in a given situation you have to decide on the basis of rational thinking that whether your action is going to be universal or not. Right. So situation will decide. So you can see that he introduces also certain aspect of dynamism. He is not trying to make it completely deterministic. That he leaves it to you and rational thinking and situation to get decided. And therefore, let's say there can be also the negative side will be that ki some people may have conflict. Some people will say ki no, this is not the way. Right, we should act in this manner, that manner. That will go on because we are human being. But the positive aspect of his philosophy is that he sets some high standards in human action, and his universal principle is in, let's say, conflict with moral relativism. Right. Moral relativism means moral values. So our moral values are relative, and different society, different people have different moral values. But he is saying, and moral values are relative means they are not universal, they will be culture specific, and he is talking that no, you should act in universal way. Gradually society moves towards universal way, homogeneous society. Gradually your life moves towards also homogeneous way. Right. You start, let's say, thinking, acting, living your life more resembling to cosmopolitan style. Can we say? So we start resembling to more cosmopolitan style. Cosmopolitan values also, liberty, equality, etc. are also cosmopolitan values. Right. That's why it says right to privacy is a matter of right elite class, not poor class. So told by law minister or law minister. So the question is that when society, let's say, grows, you become rational. So there can be more resemblance, less differences. Because people can have that rational thinking, and when they have rational thinking, there can be greater level of meeting of mind, although let's say that still there will be differences. This is what he is trying to say. Again, that does not mean he wants to set some universal principles. His main motive is that there should be right justice in society. Justice, rationality, truthfulness, and let's say we should not try to harm others by our action. This is what his first principle. Let's write second principle. Your action should be end in itself. Your action should be end in itself, rather than working as means to achieve some ends. Rather than working as means to achieve some ends. That is, he is against means and ends relationship in human actions. He is against means and ends relationships, means and ends relationships in human action, human actions. That is, he is a critic to teleological philosophy. He is a critic to teleological oblique utilitarian, teleological oblique utilitarian oblique consequentialist philosophy. Right. That is, human action on the basis of outcome. Human action should not be determined. Human action should not be determined as ethical. Human action should not be determined as ethical on the basis of outcome of actions. Outcome of actions. Rather on the basis of the action itself. Rather on the basis of the action itself. Right. In other words, it is the quality of action. sorry, it is the quality of action which should determine the quality of conduct. Which should determine the quality of conduct. Which should determine the quality of conduct. Right. What does it mean? Let's write further that it means human action should be human action should be first selfless, second without any ulterior motive, ulterior motive. Next, there should be good quality of action. Good quality of action. So can you give any example of this? Have you ever acted in terms of this without any ends? Ends. Right. Now let's take stubble burning is going on. I guess you understand. What farmers are talking about? Is there in action means and ends relationship? Right. For farmers. So farmers are behaving as per right. So they are behaving as per which philosophy? Utilitarian, consequentialist. They are behaving. What? They are burning. Right. And burning is for them cost effective. Right. If they start following all those technology etc., what will happen? It minimizes their cost. Right. It maximizes their gain. End result is that it maximizes their gain. Otherwise, their agriculture activities will be in loss. So they will not have profit in agriculture. Right. If they start following whatever the technology and whatever the things which have been prescribed. This is what they are saying. They cannot take all those measures. Even they are ready to get punished. They are saying you can punish it, impose fine, but we don't have option. Or suppose they delay, they do not burn it. So then sowing etc. will be affected. Timely season is there. So basically they are not acting as per Kantian. What Kant will say? Act of burning is itself not a qualitative human action. Right. Because it is causing pollution. So act of burning, those stubble, let's say that, the act of stubble burning itself is not a right human action. Right. You don't have to go to end. So action itself should be qualitative. First, good human action. And action should be end in itself. We should not create means and ends. But they are creating means and ends by saying that if they follow other such methodologies, so they will have lots of financial losses. Or they may not have technology, etc., let's say, but they will have lots of financial losses. And therefore, they are not following it. So they are largely behaving as per consequentialist rather than, let's say, utility, what we can say, Kantian philosophy. Right. This we say that. Similarly, let's say that case. But give you any example where people have acted. I am asking to you, let's say, before giving, I give any example. Can you give any example, where a very good example, where people act selflessly? Helping someone. Right. गुरुद्वारा लंगर्स ठीक है, अच्छा है, खाने में अच्छा लगता है. राइट. लंगर्स, चैरिटी वर्क, सोशल वर्क, डोनेटिंग ब्लड, गुड पॉइंट, डोनेशन, ब्लड डोनेशन without any name in newspaper. So blood donation. So blood donation can be one selfless act. And blood donation during examination period. Right. So still some people can do that. Anyhow, so blood donation is one such selfless. कभी आपने फैमिली में फाइट किया है कि दिस इज राइट एंड दिस इज राइट, आई स्टैंड बाय दैट फॉर द सेक ऑफ राइट. Right. So you may not have this. If you have fought in family for the sake of something as right and not taking the side of either mother, father, brother, etc., you stood by something as right, which may have hurt mother, which may have hurt father, etc., irrespective. That you are acting without motive, you are acting rationally without means and ends relationships. Most of the time we act so that ki mother should not get hurt. Right. Even if, let's say, mother is not right, but you have to say yes mein yes bolna padta hai. Right. So this is how it is. So there you are consequentialist. You should give that kind of examples which are day-to-day life. So in some situation you fight for some people just for the sake of that ki they are right. Right. And that may bring you serious consequence to you, to other, let's say that. So there can be serious consequence, but you act without any thinking of the consequence. Right. So that is a selfless action. That is an action where there is no means and ends relationships. You are standing by what is truth. So this we happen. It happens occasionally in our life. Similarly, if a civil servant stands by the values of civil service, irrespective of whether it hurts the superior or subordinates, right, but he stands by those values simply because these are the values which should be adhered. So again you are selfless. Right. This is how. And similarly, all those civil servants and public servants who are courageous and they are, let's say, facing many adverse situations and still uphold their values. Right. So again they are selfless. Again they are not trying to bring means and ends relationships. Wherever we fear the consequence and then we mold our action, we are not Kantian. And in many situations, we mold ourselves, we change ourselves so that there is a good consequence. So there is a means and so ends relation. Right. This similarly, Supreme Court judgments are at times Kantian based. They will not see the legal consequence. They will pronounce the judgment on the basis that this is the judgment rather than what is the consequence of the judgment. They will not think of. Right. When Allahabad High Court pronounced judgment. The Chandrachud was the judge that time. Now, he was asked, let's say that, right, few years back when he was alive, he was asked by a media that when you pronounce judgment related to Indira Gandhi, so did you have in mind the consequence of the judgment? He told that if judges would start thinking about the consequence of the judgment, they would not pronounce judgment. Right. So, in some situations, whatever the consequence, they will not, let's say, go for. Let me say that police does not arrest a person because it will create law and order problem. कभी कभी आपको सुनने में मिलता है ऐसा. Right. The police does not arrest a person as it will create law and order problem because person is larger than life image wala. So there is a means and ends relation. The arrest is delayed. Right. Arrest is delayed. Or there was one symbolic arrest. Right. So when Sri Krishna committee indicted Bala Sahab Thackeray, so you should know that the police did not arrest him. Right. Police right, tried all those things so that the arrest is not needed. Right. Why? Because it will result into फिर पुलिस वालों ने जाकर रिक्वेस्ट किया होगा कि अरेस्ट हो जाओ, अब क्या करना है, वी विल टेक केयर ऑफ एवरीथिंग. Right. So there was a symbolic arrest. He was symbolically arrested, let's say that. Again, means and ends relationships. Right. Created. It is not a selfless action. But selfless action is that if a person has committed an offense, irrespective of who the person is, should be acted as per law. This is what he is saying. But if you start thinking, police start thinking that what will be the consequence, and if it delays, so even rule of law will not also be implemented. Right. So means and ends relation, let's say, there are certain occasions in human life where you need to act selflessly. There should not be means and ends relationships. Right. It can be personal, it can be societal, it can be governance. But there are certain occasions that we act. Right. But in most situations, we act as per means and ends relationships. Right. He has also support here, selflessness. Already you know Nishkam Karma. Gita talks about Nishkam Karma, dutifulness. And Vivekananda will say that the main basis for human life will be selflessness. Right. Selflessness should be the main basis for human life. That was his statement. So, are we selfless? We are not selfless. We are selfish also, self-interested also. This will tell later stage. So, this is how he means to say that we should act so that our action is end in itself, rather than there is a mean to achieve some end. Is it clear? It means that one should never lie. Now, that we told, so let's write few lines this. Right. There are certain occasions in human life. There are certain occasions in human life, where human acts selflessly. Human acts selflessly. Right. Without bringing means and ends relationships. Without bringing means and ends relationships. It can be for first standing by truth. It can be for standing by truth. First, second, being rational and objective. Being rational and objective. Next, Adhering to civil services values. Adhering to civil services values irrespective of consequences. Next, judiciary pronouncing many judgments. Judiciary pronouncing many judgments. Pronouncing many judgments. Next, the practice of charity in society. The practice of charity in society. Without taking credit. Without taking credit. भंडारा वाला में क्रेडिट लेते हैं लोग, इसलिए आई डिड नॉट टेल मच. Right. Charity should be done without taking credit. But Bhandara is a competition. आज हमारा है, कल तुम्हारा है. Means this is how it is. अच्छा है लोगों के लिए, but you are feeding the fed people already, all Rajendra Nagar. Right, isn't it? All Rajendra Nagar at least. So we cannot say it is a poor locality. Right, but it happens there. Bhandara does not happen in slum areas. Right, it may be, but वहाँ कोई credit मिलेगा नहीं. Right, although it's good that it should happen any place. Right, that's very different thing. But charity now has become also a matter of pomp and show and taking credit. That is not selfless. Right. So this can be considered. So these are some examples. Try to know what he is saying. A good quality of human is one who is selfless. I think a person who gives judgment, and you know that in some movies even brother is a police officer and he arrests his own brother. Right. There can be some, let's say, that movies or family members. Right. That is an act of selflessness. You are executing law. Right. You know the consequence, but you are executing law. And the popular movie, the most popular, were the juncture of Indian cinema. Right. So even let's say that mother, so mother is also not cared in that. Law is cared. Right. It was, I think, which movie? Janjeer. Diwar. Right. So in Diwar, this is how it is. So if you take that movie is symbolically, right. So the question is that the officer does not care the social relations, rather the law is taken into care. So that is another example of, let's say, acting as per law. So those who act as per law without taking into consideration the consequence, that is also an act of selflessness, or what you can say, Immanuel Kant philosophy. But that is not the point. We told lesser good, higher good, highest good. Right. The highest good in a human is that the human acts selflessly. Human does not act either in favor of the family members, caste, religion, community, country. You rise above all these things and you act in right fashion. Otherwise, we are not what is happening in our society. So we are more, let's say, bordered by our family members, family interests, societal interests, caste interests, religion interests, community and country. Right. And if you rise above that, then your action will become more selfless. Right. This is how. This is what he wants to say. Means he talks about something, a highest good in human. Right. A person who should be of that kind. Right. This is what he means to say. And human, today, tomorrow, basically you will decide whether you want to be a person, right, known for making others happy, or you want to be a person the way you want. This is how. So you will understand this what we are trying to say, that means whether you should keep acting by what others are expecting, or you should also act the way you expect, irrespective of the consequence. Right. So many a time you take right decisions and you may not think about the consequence. Right or wrong decision, but you may not think about the consequence. This is how. And in that way he is trying to enhance the quality of human action, quality of human behavior in a rational way. So these are some examples we can tell. Let's write further. It means, further let's write that. It means Kant will not, Kant will, according to this philosophy rather, according to this principle, one should never first tell lie, second act with negative objects, third, one should never seek benefit from human action, Right. Relevance, let's write. Relevance of this principle. It promotes high standards of human conduct. It promotes high standards of human conduct. It will discourage greediness, selfishness, or justification of any human action, on the basis of good outcome, on the basis of good outcome. On the basis of good outcome. It will promote in society. Greater level of satisfaction, harmony, and justice. Right. Gita, Mahatma Gandhi, Vivekananda, and Mahatma Gandhi also emphasize on dutifulness, selflessness, and only right means would result into right ends. Only right means would result into right ends. That is, the quality of human action will improve. Quality of human action will improve. Quality of human action will improve. Now let's see. Application of Immanuel Kant philosophy. Quality of human action will improve. Let's write application of Immanuel Kant philosophy. first at individual level. Individual. Right. His philosophy is applicable to moral development in individuals. Moral development in bracket, development of human conscience, as he talks about the philosophy of categorical imperative, which will be found in individuals, only when they have developed their own moral understanding. In bracket, moral understanding, in bracket, moral autonomy. Moral autonomy. Moral autonomy is the highest stage of moral development. Moral autonomy is the highest stage of moral development. In individuals, as per Lawrence Kohlberg. Lawrence Kohlberg. H is silent. We'll deal, when we'll take rules, etc. There we'll talk about human conscience and we'll talk about Lawrence Kohlberg. But Lawrence Kohlberg has given 6 stages of moral development. And the highest stage is moral autonomy. So, moral autonomy in the sense that do you act today as per your own moral understanding, or you still act as per others' moral understanding? So, if somebody says something, so whether you, let's say, readily agree and you also start supporting him, or you first logic yourself, whatever he is saying is right or not. If any news is published in newspaper, and whether you form your view as per the newspaper or you also logic it, whether the given news is right or not, and then you take a view on that. So, when you start logicking yourself and then you take a view, that is how you have your own moral understanding. Right. And if we act as per others' views, rather than logicking ourselves, that is how you lack moral understanding. And he is talking, this categorical imperative means the true philosophy you will follow, the true principles you will follow, when you have your own rational thinking. Right. When you are able to distinguish means and ends, there should be understanding between means and ends. You understand it, You understand the consequence. You understand in a given situation what is universal action. You can logic it. This is called moral development. So, human conscience is developed through the process of moral development, which happen through the process of socialization. And it is the highest stage of development. And let's say that even let's say people may have that moral understanding, they may not have moral understanding. There are many other factors which will influence. But as far as philosophy is concerned and its application in case of individuals are concerned, his philosophy has lots of application in moral development, how individuals' moral understanding should be, and how their conscience is developed, why their conscience should be developed, what is the role of the human conscience, etc. And that is how it helps in understanding. And once there is a moral development, so people will act in a rational way. Right. Once there is moral development, right. Our is a society, as I say, I have started telling from the day first class itself, magical society. We are a magical society, we believe in magical elements. Right. That's why ours is a society where you do not find, you will find less and less instances of success by hard work. Right. And more instances of success by many other things. So, this we can say that. That shows itself lack of moral development. So, his philosophy is applicable to individuals in case of their moral development, or we can explain the process of moral development. And he talks about highest stage. Categorical imperative will be, let's say, found in a person who has highest stage of development of moral understanding. Great. So, this way we can tell it. Let's write next. Society. Application at individual level, then society. Yes. Yes. Autonomy. Yes. Yes. When people will have differences and there is a moral understanding, at least they will not fight against each other. Right. They will respect each other's differences. And there will be a decent way of dealing differences instead of the way it happens in society. That will be the difference. If you find that people who have highest level of moral development, so they will not have a physical fight. They will not indulge in act of murder. They will not indulge in, let's say, vested interest. Right. That will not happen. Rather, there will be more intellectualism. Right. I will fight against you by my intellectual faculty. I will logic it, counter it through my intellectualism, rather than physical attack. That will not happen. This is how it is. Right. For instance, let's say that you know that Indian History Congress happens. Indian Science Congress. So when there is an Indian Science Congress where you have all those, let's say that intellectuals gathered, and they share their whatever they have achieved, but it does not result into infighting. Once it resulted into infighting, when at that platform it was claimed that India had a rocket science. India had mastered the rocket science in ancient time. So that year there was conflict. Right. Still, let's say you cannot say that if people have differences, so there will be harmony. It's not like that. Right. There will also be conflict, ideological conflict. Right. This we can say that. Conflict will happen when you want your ideology to dominate over other ideology. Then you will have ulterior motive. Right. Then it becomes means and ends because you want your ideology to be dominating. Right. So you are not Kantian then. Yes, moral, you are saying moral development means ethical development. It is same. But we use the term moral, not ethical. Right. So let's write at society level. Right. The role of society is important. The role of society is important in promotion of moral values. Moral values. Since individuals' moral developments are influenced by socialization. It is here the role of society becomes important. It is here. Means it is here the role of society becomes important. Society has also collective conscience. Which is at times used. So collective conscience. So society has also collective conscience, or there is also conscience of society. Conscience of society. Right. It is society which also, through its societal norms, promotes human actions based on means and ends relationships. Human actions based on means and ends relationships. For instance, in Indian society, there is greater emphasis on service. There is greater emphasis on service, selflessness, helping attitude, and sacrifice. Service, helping attitude, selflessness. Great. So this is how we can take about what Immanuel Kant talks for society. The society has also role, and society, it is the society which determines. So through process of socialization, the moral development we have. And in childhood, parents may have told you that act in selflessness, act with selflessness, or be truthful when they are talking. You should be truthful, you should not be harmful, etc. So this is how, let's say, somehow you were taught some of the values related to what Immanuel Kant is talking about. This way. How much our conscience is developed, it depends on our society. Right. And how much their conscience is developed, it depends on their society. You know that Renaissance happened there, revolutions happened there. Right. So certainly there will be certain, or all these philosophies were given by their society. These all philosophers in their society. In our society, all those philosophers' advancement ended in ancient time. Right. Thereafter, we are eating on the compound interest. So the question is that thereafter you do not have development. But these things have happened in their society. But we are not saying that conscience is more developed in their society, our society. But yes, our conscience remain in, let's say, something called ignorance, oblivion, and in slumber, let's say that. So there is ignorance, inertia, etc. We find, right? We may be either very strong inbuilt persons, or we may be very weak inbuilt persons. It depends on how we say it. When all the issues are happening around us, we are not speaking, so we have a greater tolerance power, right? So this is how we can say, or we are ignorant people, right? So all those number, every day we face, you face, we face at Karol Bagh station, lots of hustle and bustle. But nobody complains it. Nothing happens it. Same thing you can find elsewhere also. So whether we are a highly tolerant people or we ignore it. Right. So human conscience, how it is developed, how it is active, depends on society. This is how. Judges can have some greater level of conscience, non-compromising conscience. That's why they want to give those judgments. Right. This way. Anyhow. It is your conscience also that has helped to decide for preparing this examination, troubling everything. Right. So let's take to governance, how it will help in governance. Right. So application at governance level. Right. Governance also aims for first truthfulness, second justice, truthfulness, second justice, right. Next selflessness in society. Further, since governance is operationalized, by civil servants, and they have to act not only as per law, but also as per their conscience. Right. This is first, you can write. First, second. They have to act in many different situations. Right. Where there will be relationships between means and ends. Therefore, the philosophy of Immanuel Kant can be helpful. The philosophy of Immanuel Kant is helpful in taking decision by application of rationality. That civil servants right, should follow following principles given by Nolan Committee. Nolan Committee. Great. First, selflessness. First, selflessness. Second, honesty. Next, integrity. Next, integrity. Next, objectivity. Objectivity. Next, openness. Next, openness. Next, accountability. Accountability. Next, leadership. Leadership. That is, civil servants, civil servants, civil servants should apply their own mind. Should apply their own mind. Change in paragraph, then you write, civil servants should apply their own mind in a given situation. Given situation. And act in public interest. Act in public interest. They can act in better fashion. They can act in better fashion when they have developed their own categorical imperative. They can act in better fashion when they have developed their own categorical imperative. Categorical imperative. For instance, while enforcing law, they should not only focus on consequence. They should not only focus on consequence, but also quality of enforcement. Quality of enforcement. But the incidents like nexus corruption, weak enforcement of law, nexus, corruption, weak enforcement of law, indicate that there is lack of application of categorical imperative. There is lack of application of categorical imperative. Isn't it? It depends on every individual, every civil servant. No, so whether there should be give and take. So you have give and take, this is how people take lots of things. Most of the civil servants will have disproportionate property. Right. They will have property which you cannot account for. This is how it is, how it has come. Hardly it matters. I should not talk all these things. These are now ethical. So, in state examination, most of the people are appearing in state examination, not to serve, but to earn. Right. And there is a competition, rivalry, how much we can earn, how much you have earned. Right. This is how you should know that. Many, let's say that key, many incidents happen if the person is a powerful one, rich one, so law does not act. Rather, law waits for. You wait for. लेकिन एक पुअर फेलो ने कुछ ऑफेंस किया है, you know that there is no any delay.
Right. There is a very prompt action. The law is very active when a person is weak, and law is weak when a person is strong. Right. So these differences are coming not because of law, but because of those who are applying it. Right. And those who are applying, so they have mind, certainly they have mind. And when they have mind, so they have their conscience. When they have conscience, so their conscience is not acting what Kant is talking about. Right. This is how. Police will arrest a person who has not committed offense, merely on the ground that he was present. And he looks like a murderer. Right. Since you are in well dressed, neat, clean, etc., he is a bus conductor, so he cannot afford to. He will have, let's say, dirty cloth, etc. And when you are in dirty cloth, not, let's say, properly combed, etc., isn't it? So you look like a murderer. Right. And therefore, let's say, appearance become basis for commission of an offense. And then person is arrested. Right. Rayan International School I am talking, not national school. It is international school. So, all schools are international school. So the question is that this is how. So it is international school, but behavior does not match internationally. Behavior is still primordial, right? Traditional, and a police wala will arrest. He is beaten in such a fashion कि neither he can sit, nor stand, nor sleep. क्या करोगे आप उसको? You have beaten in such a fashion to that person, and then you acquit that person. Right. So he is acquitted. Hardly it matters in our society, huge population. So after all, police is led by a police officer, like you once, let's say that. So there will be a police officer who will be heading that. And it is not कि he does not know it. Right. होगा कोई मजबूरी क्या कर सकते हैं. The question is that this is what human conscience is talking about. Right. And a person who has strong moral development, he will refuse to do that. Right. Why? Because you are acting as per the good outcome. Right. There is a quest to solve the case as earliest you want to solve, earliest you want to arrest. तो हमारे सोसाइटी में अरेस्ट माना जाता है कि अरेस्ट हो गया मतलब गुड एक्शन. So people will, they will be arresting also wrong person to show at least that arrest has been made, and it will subside the public sentiment कि चलो arrest हो गया. Whether a person is right one, hardly it is cared. This is also conscience of society. That's why I was talking about collective conscience of society. Right. The society is also equally responsible for that. This is how one case we are talking. If you go in Scotland, so they don't arrest people after commission of offense. That is the highest standard of policing in the world. It is a role model. In Scotland, when any offense happens, arrest is not made. They prepare the psychological profile of the person who has committed an offense. And after preparing the psychological profile, they will go and arrest that person. Right. That is called advancement in knowledge, social psychology. Right. And they will zero in on the person who has exactly committed the offense by that psychological profile. Right. In our society, mota moti, sorry to say that. Right. You were present on the crime spot, so you have committed offense. This is a traditional movie 60s mein hota tha, isn't it? Still we follow that method. Right. So murder is committed in the house. You are the, let's say, family member, you reach there. Right, and on, let's say, police also comes. Since you are in the house present, holding the knife, etc. Right. So you are a murderer, isn't it? What we are trying to say, these things are basically, let me tell that law is one thing, but human conscience is another thing. In office, as a civil servant, every time you are acting, no doubt as per law, but your conscience is also acting. How good or bad action will be, it depends on which kind of person you are. Right. Law will certainly help, but it depends on which kind of person you are. Right. And if you are a person with strong moral development, so you will not at least try to harm the people. Means you will not try to implement law in a wrong way. That is what he is trying to say. That is what you will have to have the ability to discern. Although you can relate also with universal action in a given situation, means and ends, and largely we are acting as per the end today. The civil service is behaving more as per end. End is what? Career progression. Right. So today largely let's say that you join service for selflessness. One such value given by Nolan committee, let's say that. So selflessness is one such value. But what we are trying to act? We are acting selfless. Selfish way. Right. Means ends. That is how corruption, etc. Right. Happening in our society. At least I will talk in theory. This is what our duty to talk in theory. In principle, in practice, you have to enforce. Right. There is no practical ethics. Right. Which can be taught. There should also be practical ethics to be taught. But anyhow, let's talk what he is saying. Kant will say that. Right. Utilitarian will go on. Right. Let's take it. Goes on justifying corruption. Justifying corruption. Right. How? So, corruption greases the wheel of system. Can we say? Corruption greases the wheel of system. Why corruption greases the wheel of system? For good consequence. The wheel should keep moving. And to keep wheel moving, there should be grease, let's say that, greasing. And that greasing is what? Bribe. Right. If you start paying bribe, so what will happen? Right. The wheel will not be, let's say that, this is how, hub and etc., this is how, it will not be moving. So corruption is basically keeping the system running. Isn't it? So will it be justified? Now let's take corruption कैसे हो रहा है. So brokers, your brokers, our brokers also. Right. अब अगर आप ब्रोकर्स को पैसा नहीं दोगे तो आपको हाउस रेंट पे नहीं मिलेगा. राइट. ब्रोकर सिस्टम इज ए कैपिटलिस्ट पैटर्न. और ब्रोकर अगर को हाउस रेडली वेकेंट नहीं मिलेगा तो हाउस उसको रेंट पे देने को नहीं मिलेगा. तो वो क्या करेगा कि हाउस वेकेंट भी करवाएगा और हाउस रेंट पे भी देगा. राइट. दिस इज हाउ इट इज. सो इट इज ए साइकिल. Cycle for earning. Right. So if you are staying in one such house for let's say 2 years or 1 year, let's say that, largely they will not allow you more than 1 year or 2 years. Right. In some cases, yes, you can stay long, but after 1 2 year, what they will say is that they will give some excuses and make the houses vacant, and then it will be given to somebody else on rent. You will also search a new house, and somebody else will also get. This is how the process is going. Right. And the broker age is justified. It is justified practice. Agents are paid. Agents, mediators. So agents are paid money. There are deals, all those deals happen basically in defense deals. Right. In defense deal, there are intermediaries, or let's say that there are brokers, and brokers are paid. And we say it is justified. Right. This you should know that. So this, but I took a very different example. You should know that unless you pay bribe, the files will not keep moving. And to keep files moving, you should pay bribe. Right. This one. Black money. Every economy has black money. It is a matter of only degree, not kind. Right. Paradise papers. Right. So papers in paradise. Right. This is how. Paradise is a heaven, we say generally. The paradise papers means in heaven you keep some papers which are for all those wrong, illegal practice. Right. And just imagine that people, let's say this, why do you have paradise papers, etc., and why those paradise papers, etc., you can imagine, let's say that those companies, etc., masquerading law in such a fashion that you will not be able to prove it is illegal. Right. But it is immoral. It is unethical. It may be, let's say, legal, you cannot prove it. That's why action cannot be taken. Right. And, but it is not moral. Moral, I mean to say, it is not ethical. Right. This way. Similarly, tax evasions, let's say that. Bribes are paid. Many people have tax evasions, and let's say what they will do is that they will pay bribe. And they will keep evading. Right. Aam Aadmi means normal people keep paying their electricity bill and power bill, water bill. But other people, they do not pay regularly. They once pay bribe. Similarly, black money. There was, which market? In Karol Bagh? Kya naam tha? Gafar market. Right. This is how it is. Now it is dismantled. Right. Black money. Right. The system was running because of black money. When government started acting against black money, you know that there was slowdown in economy. Right. And when there was a slowdown in economy, property rates, etc., also declined. Demonetization result into decline in property rates. Right. This is what Immanuel Kant says. Corruption greases the wheel of the system. And since there is a good consequence, that is called growth and development, demand in the economy. Therefore, utilitarian will go on even justifying corruption for the sake of demand in the economy. Right. But it will not be true, but to some extent it is true. Right. There is a popular saying, in some, let's say, ASEAN countries, so some ASEAN countries, if you pay bribe, there is action. Right. If you pay in Western society bribe, there is no action, there is no concept of bribe culture. But in India, you pay bribe, still there is no action. Right. This is how it is. Anyhow, there is another popular saying, whether you need an efficient person but unethical, ethical person but inefficient. Right. Which type of person you need? Right. There is a popular saying this. Okay, ethical person, generally ethical persons you say inefficient, and efficient person unethical. Generally it is asked in your interview. But that is how also one such aspects. Means and ends relation, let's say that. Okay, you should know already this question has been asked. But in RTI, etc., resulted into delay in decision making. No. You know 5C concept? So 5Cs. 5Cs means code, CVC, SCAG, CIC. Right. So they resulted into delay in policy paralysis. How it happened? Right. The policy paralysis happened as there was greater effort by these 5 institutions to promote accountability. Right. And there was a slowdown in decision making. And slowdown in decision making affected, completion of projects, etc. Right. This is how. So, if you take society, there is act of corruption, and that, let's say, many a time helps economy. It brings good consequence. Right. Yes, yes.
In Supreme Court, whatever judges we have, they are ethical as well as efficient. 8 means some NCRT I went to read, 6th, 7th standard NCRT, that in 1800s, last century actually, 100 years back, there were drawbacks of judicial system which is introduced, that it is complex for a common man, it is very time consuming, and it is very expensive also for poor. This 100 years back, we come to know its drawbacks. Today also, practical situations for a poor person I'm talking about, it's too much delayed process. It's means it's as good as
आज ही तो आया है आपके न्यूज़पेपर में 30 इयर्स के बाद कोई जजमेंट आया है.
that's
Right. This is a yes. What is the question? Question. What is question?
why the Supreme Court judges they have authority but they don't change it.
Oh, right. इनके हाथ में नहीं है ये सब. It is not in their hand. It is in the hand of legislature and executive. And they will not like judiciary to be very efficient. This you should know.
And why we common people accept it? If there are no
That is what I said, that either we are highly tolerant people or we are highly ignorant people. Right. Either we can see it. Right. देखो कॉमन पीपल में भी तो प्रॉब्लम है, बट विल गो समवेयर एल्स. कॉमन पीपल हैज आल्सो प्रॉब्लम ना. देखो कॉमन पीपल को कोर्ट में जाना ही नहीं चाहिए. कॉमन पीपल को अपना केस कंप्रोमाइज करके सॉल्व कर लेना चाहिए. बट कॉमन पीपल आल्सो डू नॉट वांट टू कंप्रोमाइज. एक छोटे से प्रॉब्लम के लिए 10 साल लड़ रहा है केस कोर्ट में. ईगो. द प्रॉब्लम इज एट कॉमन पीपल आल्सो लेवल. राइट. बट अल्टीमेट लेट्स से योर question solution lies with executive basically, and executive will never like that judiciary and police they should be highly efficient. In fact, administration should be highly efficient also, they will not like. Right. Inherently कोई ऐसा concern नहीं है, इसलिए कि law they will have to amend, police let's say reform you have to bring, changes let's say judges appointment you have to do. You do not appoint judges on time. Always they remain 30% of the seats sanction strength. 30% it remains always vacant. Right. So ultimately it is the executive which should do, but executive and then people. So it is the people who are responsible. Because they are allowing, they are tolerating it. Right. So ultimately people are responsible. We are responsible. Right. Anyhow. So I was trying to relate Kant with administrative situation, let's say that. many such conditions. You can pick up any such example. You can take up a bribe example. You can take up a corruption example. You can take up any such FIR example, law enforcement example. Many such examples are there in a given situation you can take. Even a project implementation where you know that the project is not approved unless bribe is paid. Right. This is how. Even awards are also given on the basis of bribe. Right. This you should know. So, how awards are given? Because once you get award, you get lots of good image in society and you will get lots of contract also. If a business company is awarded, so then it gets lots of contract. So the question is that this is how its application, and that has resulted what I told in beginning. He does not want that you follow robotically only two principles. The main aim is justice, let's say that, and justice will suffer. Right. If administration will not act as per the two principles he is talking, although there will be other principles also, so ultimately justice will suffer. Because law will not be enforced uniformly. Right. You will not enforce law uniformly, rather you will enforce law who is who. So justice will suffer. And this is how it is happening. So this way you can write it, but let's write further on this. So I will just summarize this one because it is important. So further you can write this. He can't criticize utilitarian. Can't criticize utilitarian for its emphasis on good outcome of action, good outcome of action, and not caring for quality of action. Not caring for quality of action. That is, for utilitarians, ends are more important than means. Ends are more important than means. Which have resulted into crony capitalism. Crony capitalism. Crony, C-R-O-N-Y. Crony capitalism. Capitalism. You know crony capitalism? It speaks itself, so you don't have to explain. Crony capitalism is about greediness. It is about greediness to earn profit. Right. Not by right means, but by all those wrong means. It is about greediness to keep lying. Right. To inflate your account, etc. This is how Satyam does, Sahara, etc. The wrong way you try to do your business to earn profit. Right. Crony capitalism also enter into nexus with the government, etc. This is how. So, crony capitalism has resulted into Western society. Crony capitalism has resulted in our society just for the sake of keeping the company profitable. The profit of the company becomes important. Running company becomes more important than values. Right. And that is how, let's say, that we go on justifying. And that is how the society today. Right. But let's write further. But crony capitalism has serious consequence. Crony capitalism has serious consequence. Kant has given a good analysis of Kant has given a good analysis of action based on good outcome. Action based on good outcome. Not the quality of action itself. Not the quality of action itself. Right. That first, today there can be good outcome. today there can be good outcome. But if means was, today there can be good outcome, but if means was wrong, in long run it will have serious consequence. In long run it will have serious consequence. For instance, the consequence of crony capitalism on society. The consequence of crony capitalism on society. The consequence of crony capitalism on society. Second, if the person was allowed to copy in examination, if the person was allowed to copy in examination, then in immediate run, there may have been good consequence. There may have been good consequence that he would get a job. He would get a job. But in long run, suppose he gets guilt feeling. He gets guilt feeling, which generates tension. Then, in such situation, according to cost benefit analysis, there will be more pain than pleasure. There will be more pain than pleasure. Are you able to understand? We brought that example again. Why? Try to understand what he is trying to say. Today there can be good outcome if you compromise your means. But tomorrow it will not be. And if you take world today, whatever the juncture we are, so all those wrong or actions of past have piled up, and today the world is not in a better situation. Right. If you find the causes of survival of this world, then you have equal causes of destruction of this world. Right. And when something happens and destroys, then you regret. Right. For instance, let's say that कि cyclone came in US. अगर cyclone वो थोड़ा सा और severe होता, तो US nuclear plants could have also got affected. Right. अगर वो थोड़ा सा और severe हो जाए, और थोड़ा destructive हो जाए, the nuclear power plants of US and even weapons are not safe. Right. And you can imagine what the damage it will happen. Right. Throughout the world, cyclone came recently. And how much damage you can see it. How it comes, why it comes. Let's take it is nature. Right. But what about Uttarakhand disaster and flood in Kerala? Can we say it is completely nature made? Right. Let's forget about that. The question is that industrial revolution happened, no doubt. They focus on ends, but they caused huge damage to environment. Right. They caused huge damage to environment. Right. Because they did not care that time sustainable development. Now you are talking sustainable development. It's up to us how we see this society. Right. But certainly society is not in a better situation. You can see Delhi also, and the air quality. The good thing is that all people are living in Delhi. We all are living in Delhi. Right. अब चाहे आप अपने को टाटा बिरला बोलो या जो बोल रहे हैं, द क्वालिटी ऑफ एयर इज सेम. ठीक है, आपके घर में एयर प्यूरिफायर हो सकता है, राइट, बट वो सिर्फ वहीं का. आप एयर प्यूरिफायर लेके क्लास में तो आओगे नहीं, राइट. सो द क्वेश्चन इज दिस, all individuals, means every individual in Delhi is breathing the same quality of air. Right. Be it, let's say, a rich person, be it even Prime Minister, provided he is in Delhi. Right. And you cannot change the quality of air, and it is due to human action. It is due to human action, and we gave in the beginning example. It is due to more focusing on outcome, less focusing on, right. And you imagine the children, the small children, let's say that, those who are, let's say, very at a small age, and they are facing those all problems. Doctors ने क्या बोला है, जैसे ही air quality आपका खराब होगा, right, hospitals will be having lots of people with breathing and other lung etc. problems. Right, this you can say that. I think in science and technology it is talked, cloud seeding, artificial rain. लिखने में बहुत अच्छा लगता है. Right, but I have not heard that they are talking about that. Why they don't have artificial rain and cloud seeding or other such technology, isn't it? So rather we are planning it. Right, watching it, monitoring it. Right. How long you will keep watching and monitoring? Time is for action. You take action. Right. Go for the artificial rain and cloud seed in 8 sectors so that it does not come. एक बार जो एयर आ जाएगा वो सारा जो स्टबल बर्निंग दिल्ली में, तब क्या करोगे? वॉच करके क्या करोगे? Right. But that's not my point. You talk in paper 3, other papers. What we are trying to say, what he is trying to say. Right. If the person will copy that time, immediate run is good consequence, but long run is that what will happen? Tension will happen. If does not happen, let's say many people will not have tension, forget about it. Right. But what will happen? So it will happen like this. That's why human action, whether you want to have a very developed world, but will all destructions, let's take doctor, engineer, right, lawyer, right, then civil servant, politician, you can add as manager, right. Basically what is happening? All people are, sorry to say that, looting each other. Right. This is what fleecing, जो आप बोल सकते हो. So engineer है वो, lawyer है वो, right. Nobody has action as per rational criteria. एक lawyer आपसे इतना फीस इसलिए लेता है कि उसको भी बहुत सारा पैसा खर्च लगता है, और एक टीचर भी ऐसा पैसा लेता है, उसको भी बहुत सारा लगता है. Right. So the question is that everyone is looting everyone. It is not a rational society. Now, lawyer is defending a murderer. This is yes, he should defend, but he should not prove him that he has not committed murder. A murderer should be defended just for the sake of rule of law. But a murderer you should not defend that he has not committed murder. Right. But you are defending. You are defending a murderer even if you know that the person has murdered. Right. This. Similarly, let's say engineer. So it will result into, let's say, you know that truth will be affected. If truth is affected one place, it will be affected another place. Engineer will have a wrong design of flyover. Perhaps lawyer was driving that time when the flyover collapsed. राइट, ऐसा हो सकता है. राइट, अब वो जाएगा डॉक्टर के पास. डॉक्टर ने मान लो कि फेक मेडिसिन है हमारे सोसाइटी में, तो डॉक्टर विल प्रिस्क्राइब ए फेक ड्रग, फेक मेडिसिन. राइट, उसके बाद क्या होगा? That is how things are network linked. You should know. If truth is lost at one place, it is lost at every place. Right. This is how. That is how Martin Luther King Jr. says, right, injustice anywhere is, right, what we say? Threat to justice everywhere. Yes. Injustice anywhere is threat to justice everywhere. इस बार उन्होंने ऐसे में इसको चेंज कर दिया और उन्होंने बोला पॉवर्टी एनीवेयर, ऐसे ही एक स्टेटमेंट है. तो जस्टिस की जगह उन्होंने पॉवर्टी यूज कर दिया. Right. This is what Kant is trying to say. Try to understand something which is very different from, you should not take Kant only by two principles. Right. Truth will be lost if we do not act, right, as per right action. The action itself should be right. Right. If we are acting as per always consequence and good consequence, so basically we are compromising truth, and summation of all those human actions would result into destruction of society. Right. And that has resulted into today's situation in our country. Ki nothing is, let's say that ki appropriate, right? Beginning from your vegetable, I told one day, I think in this class, toothpaste from there, or I may have told in other class. Right. So beginning from vegetable, which is not vegetable at all. Right. This is how. The vegetable that you are eating is all adulterated, and from there everything is adulterated. Right. And all those things we are eating, everyone, चाहे डॉक्टर हो, इंजीनियर हो, लॉयर हो, एटसेट्राज, ठीक है, प्राइम मिनिस्टर के लिए अलग से आता होगा वेजिटेबल. सो everyone is eating the same thing. Right. So you can see the consequence of society. This way you should take Immanuel Kant. Therefore, let's summarize.
Sir, about guilt feeling, if it is according to the law, how they will feel?
Law will not allow copying.
No, for example, reservation.
Right. So reservation is, now you are going in a different aspect, let's say that. Reservation is affirmative action, positive way. It has not been properly used, that is negative. Properly implemented. But reservation is essential for any society to create level playing field. Right. Even in US there is reservation. How you implement is, that is going to be decided whether it is right way you are implementing or wrong way you are. But reservation per se will.
Is that Kant will accept according to his
Now, Kant will say ki act in such a fashion when your action is universal. So even in US also reservation is there. That way you can take. Right. It has a good reservation you are doing to promote justice in society. Right. This way you can say that. So he will not argue reservation something, but if you talk especially universal aspect, justice, so that way it can be justified. Yes.
Philosophy is basically analyzing the quality of action or the outcome of the action.
Quality of action.
So, but we have written here that Kant has given us good analysis of action based on good outcome, not the quality of action itself.
Yes, yes, yes. See, I brought that example, I guess, but in long run, suppose he gets guilt feeling. Where you are writing? Right. Crony capitalism has serious consequence. Kant has given a good analysis on action, good analysis of action based on good outcome. Yes, it is about crony capitalism. Sentence is correct. Grant has given, let's say, crony capitalism. It is about crony capitalism that in crony capitalism we do not care for quality of action. Rather, we are caring for more consequence of action. Right. So I think we have finished it, but it is about means, quality of action. Right. This is how. Let's write further that. It means Kant is not emphasizing. It means Kant is not emphasizing on only two principles. On only two principles, but also the consequence of human action. Consequence of human action, if they are not based on two principles, if they are not based on two principles, and the most serious consequence will be, and in general, right, in general, the most serious consequence will be the most serious consequence will be loss of truth in society. Loss of truth in society, which is considered also as end of society, which is also considered as end of society. If today's society is facing serious threats, if today's society is facing serious threats, it is largely due to greater emphasis of society on outcome oriented action, right, such as materialism, commercialization, commodification, materialism, commercialization, commodification, etc. So this is how we'll talk about it. Let's write out criticism to Kant. Criticisms to Kant. First, his concept of categorical imperative. Based on development of human conscience has been criticized has been criticized as it is difficult to prove its existence in human mind. Its existence in human mind. Right. So where does it exist? Right. Human conscience. Can we see human conscience? Very difficult to see. We'll tell agar details. Conscience today is right, tomorrow it is not. You applied your conscience while solving prelims questions, but it turned out to be wrong. Right. So human conscience may not always be right. Let's say it is difficult to explain, right, these things. So that is how this criticism. Let's write next point. He's an absolutist thinker. He is an absolutist thinker, right, who promotes ethical absolutism. Ethical absolutism by emphasizing on ethical absolutism by emphasizing on universal human action. Universal human action by emphasizing on universal human action. But society differs. Society differs place to place, and it is characterized by moral relativism. Moral relativism. That is social morality. Social morality. And therefore, all human actions will not be universal. All human actions may not be universal, but in a given situation, context, culture, their actions can be right. Their actions can be right. Isn't it? Already we have told ethics versus morality. The same you can tell. So universal, he says, कि act in such a fashion that your action is universal. But always our action will not be universal, because social, cultural factors are different. Right. Even let's say role of civil service. The role of civil service in Indian context is different from role of civil service in US. Right. In US, the bureaucracy does not have the role of development. Right. Bureaucracy does not play the role of development. But in India, bureaucracy plays the role of development. Right. So you cannot have universal action. Right. In US, there is a one civil law, but we do not have one civil law. We are not trying for one civil law. What Law Commission has said? Uniform civil code is neither necessary nor desirable at this stage. So, the question is that at this stage, let's talk about today. Tomorrow what is going to happen, that we are not talking. So, at this stage means that the civil laws will be different. You cannot have the same civil laws. Let's say LGBT community, they have got some rights. So you cannot have the same civil laws what you have the civil laws for others. Can we say? Right. Because other civil law basically, let's say marriage act are based on heterogeneity. The binary of heterogeneity, heterogeneous sex. But when you recognize gay rights, right, it is not heterogeneous, binary. So can we have the same civil laws? You will have to amend civil laws. But I will not go into that legal aspect. What we are trying to say is that moral relativism will be part of the society, still that action will also be right. So all human actions cannot be universal. Right. Or we cannot act in universal way. Societies are different, different societies have different, let's say, obligations, culture, etc. And that's why, let's say, human action will differ also society to society. Right. This is what criticism to universal principle. Let's write the third criticism. Right. His concept of his second principle has also been sharply criticized. His second principle has also been sharply criticized, especially by utilitarians. Especially by utilitarians. Utilitarians. Right. It is very difficult to make human action end in itself. It is very difficult to make human action end in itself. There may necessarily be means and ends relationships. There may necessarily be means and ends relationships, even if a person is acting selflessly. Even if a person is acting selflessly. For example, charity. People can give charity for the sake of, first, their religious duty. People give charity for the sake of, first, religious duty. Good outcome in life. Good outcome in life or afterlife. Or at least they may get satisfaction when they serve people. They get satisfaction when they serve people. They serve people, they help people. Isn't it? You feel? Right. So many a time it is, this is how. If you help people, you derive different type of happiness. Right. So you help people, you derive happiness. So happiness becomes end. So can we, let's say, have human action purely based on end in itself? Very difficult. Right. Suppose you adhere by the civil service values because you want to propagate the civil service values. The civil service values should be propagated, should be adhered for the sake of survival of civil service as an institution. So it is very difficult, let's say, that distinguish means a human action which is only based on end. Right. You want to be a good human. Vedas, we told one day that the main aim of human life is to be a good human. That is end. Or all religions are talking about nirvana. Right. Enlightenment, nirvana, let's say that. So basically, if you are religious, so you want to prepare for afterlife. No. If you are a religious person, you are preparing for your afterlife. Right. Afterlife means which we do not know where it is. So, heaven, this is how it is said, isn't it? You are preparing for your heaven, you are preparing for, people do not prepare for hell, but anyhow. The question is that can we separate it? Right. So people, very difficult. That's why very few people you can separate who have risen above all these things. No. You seek appreciation. People do lots of good things. If they are not appreciated. So what happens? फैमिली में भी कोई ना कोई बोल ही देता है आप कभी हमें अप्रिशिएट नहीं करते. Right. This is how. The people should be appreciated. If they are not appreciated, they feel bad. People are not awarded. If they are not awarded, they also feel bad. And when late award is given, they refuse to take it. Right. This is also right. So whether you are doing it for the sake of award, you are doing. Recognition, you are doing. The recognition is one such important aspect of life. Right. So you want recognition, you want respect. So can we separate human action from recognition, respect, good image, appreciation, etc.? Right. We will not be able to separate. Right. So let's write further. It is very difficult to separate human action from respect, recognition, being a good human, or seeking enlightenment, nirvana, etc. Right. This, in fact, success has become one such main aim of human life. Success has become one such main aim of human life. Aim of human life. Change paragraph. There are some situations where there must be means and ends relationships. There are some situations where there must be means and ends relationships. Such as Haynes' dilemma. Haynes' dilemma. Right. Second, one should lie to save one's life. One should lie to save life. There is a very classic example that, let's write, there is a classic example of, right, Jews in Germany. Right, who were persecuted during Nazi regime. Suppose, let's write, suppose there is a family, right, which gives shelter to, suppose there is a family which gives shelter to some Jews members who are being persecuted by police. Police comes knocking the door. And asks whether Jews are hiding in your house. whether Jews are hiding in your house. What the family should respond? What the family should tell to police? Yes or no? Yes, no. Right. This is how it is. So it is no. The family should say no. Let's write. According to utilitarian, the response should be no. According to utilitarian, the response should be no. But according to Kantian, telling lie is wrong human action. Telling lie is wrong human action. Right. Therefore, Kantian philosophy may not be appropriate in some situations. May not be appropriate in some situations. Some situations. Right. Let's. Nevertheless, we'll conclude now. Way forward, you can write. Way forward. Ending Kant. Right. Even if Kant is criticized, for not being applicable in some situations, but his motive was to promote first rational human action. First, rational human action. Second, universal action. Third, selfless action. And change in paragraph. They have immense relevance. In establishing a moral society. They have immense relevance in establishing a moral society. Based on sense of justice and truthfulness. Truth is very important. Even emphasized by all religious philosophies. His philosophy is also relevant for individuals. For cultivating moral development. And achieving moral autonomy. Moral development and achieving moral autonomy. So this is how we end. Moral autonomy. Yes, try to understand this. Kant may have defended his philosophy if he had been alive. Right. When he says that ki you should be outcome oriented, Prime Minister is talking, the Prime Minister does not mean that ki you should take any such means to achieve outcome orientation. For instance, Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. And some civil servants, right, out of their so much, let's say, being or getting recognition of Prime Minister that they have inflated their data and they have declared that the district is, right, completely, let's say, defecation free. And when it has been verified, it was found that no, data was not, or somehow data was fabricated. So outcome orientation, even if you criticize Kant, let's say, when we were talking that time, I tried to finish it, not go in further detail. Already we have talked lots of details. But you should know that it does not mean that when you have a means and ends relation, when you want to be outcome oriented, still it is not against Kant, because you do not want outcome orientation by any means. Right. When you become outcome oriented by any means, then let's say that it is going to be wrong. Right. This way. Still they will have to follow those values, the civil service values. You become outcome oriented by adhering to the civil service values and law, not by ignoring those civil service values and laws. Yes, that's why let's say both philosophies are important. Utilitarian is also important, Kantian is also important. In some situation you have to follow means and ends relation, and some situation you should be, as I told in beginning, those examples are still relevant. When you fought for your family members in society and you just wanted to be right, you did not want to be right for something else, etc. You just wanted to be right. And there will be situation where you just want to be right, right, for the sake of right, rather than you want to make somebody else happy or something else, etc. You don't have any, let's say that things to achieve. You are, let's say, right just because of that it is right. Right. And this is selflessness. So in some situation in our life, we are selfless. You cannot say we are not selfless. Right. But yes, in some other situation, we are not. Both are important. Moral relativism is also important. And moral absolutism is also important. Society is made up of both aspects. Right. So we should not see Kant in a negative light. We should not see, let's rather have a rational aspect. Both are important. When Mahatma Gandhi says do or die, right, the do or die, he does not know the consequence, whether we'll get independence. Right. But let's say that he adhered to non-violence. But people argue that then do or die was not right in accordance with his philosophy. But there was situation also. So a person cannot always follow the same philosophy, same principle. Right. This is how it is. I have a bit doubt of how much you have understood it, Kantian philosophy. Although we'll tell utilitarian etc. further, you'll have the clarity. But a question was asked in 2014 or 15. You write that answer. So then you will know how better you understand. So Kant has been asked. Basically, his means and ends statement has been asked. So you write that statement answer, that way you will know that how better you have written. Right. I do not remember the question, right. It is related to means and ends. Right. So you find out, if you have paper, you will have papers. Right. If you have paper, you find out that question, it was asked in 14 or 15. Right. And you write that answer. Right. You come writing that, when I will come tomorrow, so I will see your answer. Right. That will show how better you have understood. First, when you write it, try to write in your own way, not that you give different example, don't give the examples that we have given. Right. The example we have given, you can write in examination. You can write in your test, but not tomorrow. Right. You write your examples so that it will indicate that yes, you are able to bring different example, you are able to understand it. So we'll meet tomorrow, we'll finish here. Okay, right.